Welcome to another Fearless Football Forecast. Last week of regular season, Tony, a lot of games with importance here, but none are bigger than the first one on the slate. So start us off, Aidan Griffin in a conference championship, basically.
Should be a really good game, too, between two good teams. As you have here in the notes, it's kind of come down to Aidan Griffin and Goldsboro. It seems like every season. They both come into this game undefeated in league. Both are flying high right now, particularly Aidan Griffin, playing really well, particularly at home. The defense is looking great. Goldsboro is a really good team, and Goldsboro has had the better of this matchup more times than not. But I feel like Aidan Griffin's going to win, and I'm picking the Chargers.
All right, I'm going to go with you as well. I know it's been tough. Last year, Goldsboro won 33-6. It was the same exact scenario as you said. But as we said before we got on the show here, I think this is one of the better Aidan Griffin teams we've seen in a while.
Agreed.
I don't think that team last year and the year before was as strong as this team.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing. I think there's a revenge factor. I talked to Paul Cornwell yesterday, and he kind of hinted it that way. I think there's a revenge factor with the Chargers. I think they get it done in a tough, kind of grinded-out, close game.
Sure.
Next game, a rivalry game here that it's kind of weird to look at these records, but D.H. Conley's at 8-2, South Central 3-7. Teams headed just in the opposite direction. And as I kind of pointed out here, Conley's already clinched second place in the conference. Can't do any better. Can't do any worse. But they've also been embarrassed a little bit by South Central the last couple of years. So I think there's motivation there. I think it's going to be, despite the scenarios and all that, I think it's going to be a game full of emotion just because of that rivalry alone. As far as my pick, I mean, I got to pick Conley. I think South Central maybe because of that rivalry can keep it close because they got something to play for. But Conley's just too explosive, too talented, and just too much to handle for South Central.
I think that any team coached by Brian Pascal is never going to relax. And you look at it from South Central side, I mean, this is a way for them to actually get something good out of what has been a pretty bad season. They're playing at home. I know they're going to be fired up. I don't think it'll be enough for them to beat Conley. I think the Vikings win.
Okay. Next game, another kind of rivalry here, Tony. Rose at New Bern.
Yeah, and it's odd. This is the second time these teams have played this year. First time was a non-conference thriller. New Bern won 44-41 in a shootout, and we were talking before the show. It was kind of a crazy game with kickoff returns and turnovers for points and all those kind of things. New Bern has really developed an identity. I still don't know what we get from Rose week in and week out. They've just been inconsistent. I think going on the road to beat New Bern is going to be too tough a task. I think the Bears will win. Yeah,
I agree. One thing that stands out with me with New Bern is they're undefeated in this league. We've talked each week about the Wilmington teams, Rose. I mean, there's no slouches in this league. And New Bern's gone right through the whole way until this last game. They're a team usually when the 4A split for the playoffs, they're in the 4A, like the smaller side. And I think that's a state championship run. If they get in that 4A bracket again, I think they're that good. I saw them play once earlier this year. I like Rose. You know, they're inconsistent as you said, but the Bears I think are really hitting their stride right now and gearing up for a playoff run. So I'm going with New Bern there. Next game is Kinston at North Pitt, and man, we talked about it last week. Once the result came in. Rough loss for North Pitt last week. I mean, they really had that thing going. 4-game winning streak. It kind of solidified a spot in that conference standings, but suffer a tough loss to Beddingfield. Now you got to come back and host Kinston, which is 4th in the state right now. I mean, they're really rolling. Talk about a tough task with Rose. North Pitt has a tough task, and I mean they're going to have to bounce back one way or another because Kinston's going to come in, and you know what you're going to get from Kinston. So that's a tough spot for North Pitt. For my pick, I'm going with Kinston just because kind of the same thing with Rose and New Bern. I think Kinston's too good. I like North Pitt as a team for sure, but Kinston's just too strong for the Panthers.
That loss last week at Beddingfield was kind of shocking to both of us. And I'm sure that it was kind of shocking to Dave Bowl, too. I'm sure he wasn't very happy with that because that was a game that they needed to get. They would have been, 4-1 in league now. Instead, they're 3-2, hosting a red-hot Kinston team that's explosive as all get out on offense, scores a lot of points. I think Kinston will get the win.
All right, last game here, Farmville Central at Green Central.
I think Farmville Central will be happy to see this season come to an end. In all honesty, you know, it's been a really long year for Scott Gardner and his crew. I feel like they're going to want to go ahead and just get this season behind them, start working for next year. Green Central, I saw them play earlier in the year. Aidan Griffin beat them at Aidan Griffin. That could be a winnable game for Farmville Central if they put everything together, but so far they haven't proven that they can do that. I think Green Central will beat them.
All right, I think last year these two teams were in the same scenario.
They were,
and Farmville got a win and got some momentum going into this season. Obviously didn't help because they're winless. They're struggling, as we said.
Right.
Some of that is their fault, some isn't, just the numbers game and different things.
Yeah.
So I could see a Jaguar win, but at 0-9 it's tough to pick Farmville. I mean, it's kind of that simple. I'll go with the home team there and go with Green Central.
Gotcha.
So there's the end of the regular season. Check Reflector.com, grab Saturday's paper, and we'll see you next week for the playoff edition.